In this Baldur's Gate 3 video, I'm going to be going through all Illithid powers of the game, going through each one, talking about them, showing you what they do in many cases, and really diving into why or why not you might want to use these on one of your characters. Before we get into that though, I do want to note that some characters in the game have resistance to wanting to use Illithid powers, so if you want them to be able to use tadpoles, you will have to convince them to do so. And the other thing that I want to mention before we actually get into the tadpoles themselves is that there's a special status in this game called Awakened, that if you go into the Githyanki Creche, into the infirmary, and you use the Zaith'isk there, you'll actually gain the Awakened status. And what this does is it allows you to use any of your tadpole powers that are actions as bonus actions. So this is extremely huge because a lot of these are very powerful, and then being able to use them as bonus actions allows you to use something else as your action on your turn. So if you plan on using Illithid powers, you really should do this if you haven't yet. Okay, so let's get into the Illithid powers themselves. Some of these are passive and some of these are active skills. The first one I want to talk about is Force Tunnel. This allows you to charge forward, pushing all objects and creatures in your path 4 meters away from you. It's an action. This would be a bonus action if you had Awakened. And you can use this once per short rest. And honestly, this one is probably good for just about any class because you can push enemies backward. It gives you a way to push. And you can push a lot of enemies to their death in this game, and it doesn't matter how good your strength is or anything like that with this. You just push them backward. But if you're not talking about pushing enemies to their death, it's probably going to be a ranged character to get themselves out of engagements so that they don't have disadvantage on their next attack, to free them up from a bunch of enemies. Usually melee characters don't mind being surrounded that much, so this would probably be used mostly on a ranged character. Up next is Favourable Beginnings. This makes it so the first attack roll or ability check you make against any target gains a bonus equal to your proficiency bonus. This is on top of your proficiency bonus, by the way, if you have proficiency already. So it's an additional bonus, and this resets every long rest. So if you trigger this on an enemy or a character and then long rested, you'd be able to trigger it again. And you can trigger this once against each character in between each long rest. So like if you go into combat and there's 5 enemies, you could theoretically trigger this 5 times, once to each enemy, but there are some quirks. For instance, if an enemy is not at full health, it doesn't seem to trigger. So like let's say you hit one enemy and it triggers, and then your next party member hits a different enemy, and then you go into your turn again, and you hit the enemy they already hit, even though it's your first attack against them, it doesn't seem to trigger. So what I would suggest doing then is either take this on all of your party members, that way every person in your party, if they attack somebody that hasn't taken any damage, will gain this benefit, and you don't have to worry about who's attacked who, or nobody takes it, and then you don't have to worry about it either. So talking about Psionic Overload, this makes it so your attacks deal an additional 1 to 4 psychic damage, but you take 1 to 4 psychic damage every turn, and this is for 10 turns. You can use it every short rest as an action. So this is really good on characters that get lots of attacks every turn. Any martial class that's going to make multiple attacks, the damage is going to outweigh the damage they take if they can attack every turn with like 2 or 3 attacks. You know, either with their actions, a combination of their actions and bonus actions, it'll outweigh the damage that they take. The main thing here is you don't want to use this as an action in combat if possible. So you would probably want to use this like right before combat starts. Transfuse Health is frankly outstanding. What this is going to do is it's going to take half your current hit points and give them to the target that you choose as an action. And it doesn't have like every long rest or every short rest. You can just keep doing this. And if you have this on like something like, let's say your fighter, something like that, where you can use Action Surge and then do that on a character that's in a bad spot and then still attack on the same turn, that's pretty deadly in my opinion. Because fighters have tons of HP, so this can heal for like almost 100 health in one go. And that is a huge burst heal, even if you take that away from, you know, maybe your tank character, who's probably not getting hit that much anyway. So I recommend probably putting this on your highest, you know, HP character and letting them toss an emergency heal to maybe one of your squishies if they get in a bad spot. Obviously, you can take this on multiple characters and they can all use it in a pinch if necessary. That's probably the ideal way to do it. But if you're only going to take it on one character, it would probably be their highest HP character, which is probably your tank. So Concentrated Blast is very situational in my opinion. It's kind of difficult to use because you have to already be concentrating on a spell in order to even use it. And then in order to get the heal from it, you have to target somebody that's concentrating. So fulfilling both of those requirements to get the most out of this is not always easy. Obviously, characters that are most likely to be concentrating are spellcasters, so you would probably take this predominantly on a spellcaster, although a paladin or a ranger might have it as well. But it's probably going to be a spellcaster that's using this. And you're going to want to try and target somebody on the enemy team that is concentrating if possible in order to heal yourself if you need the health. Otherwise, you don't really gain any benefit from that. So next is Repulser, which allows you to push anything away from you back 6 meters. if they fail a strength save, and you can do this, once every short rest as an action. And the crux of this one is it's very similar to Force Tunnel, which is good on ranged characters for getting separation so that you don't have disadvantage on any spell attack rolls or you're not in a dangerous situation surrounded by a bunch of enemies. But at the same time, those characters are the least likely to be in that situation. So this is one that probably any character could use effectively to push enemies to their death, but melee characters are typically not going to push them back for any other reason than if they know they can kill them. And ranged characters are not typically surrounded, so it's probably not one I would normally take, but if you're going to take it, it could probably be good on any class. And the Displace passive makes it so that anyone suffering fall damage because of your actions takes an additional 1 to 8 psychic damage. So if you knock an enemy off a ledge and they take any kind of fall damage, they're going to take increased damage here. This is really, really strong in anyone that has a regular knockback, like Warlocks, for instance, with their Eldritch Blast, because they can modify that to knockback. So that's really, really strong there. Or any sort of strength character that can shove enemies reliably, that's also really good. Or throw them even, like if you're playing like a Barbarian or something like that. And next we come to Charm, which allows you as a reaction to attempt to charm an enemy attacking you, preventing them from attacking you until their next turn. And you can use this every round if you want. There is no short rest or long rest, requirement for it. It can be used every round. However, it does use your spell DC to calculate the charm save. So if you are not a spellcasting class and you have no spellcasting ability modifier, you're probably not likely to charm enemies. You're probably more likely to not charm them. So you would probably only want this on a caster that has a decent spellcasting ability modifier. So Luck of the Far Realms is really just about good on any class, and what this is going to allow you to do as a passive feature as a reaction is when you make a successful attack roll against an enemy, you can convert that hit into a critical hit once every long rest. So this is a guaranteed critical hit if you are already going to hit the enemy anyway with an attack roll. So this could be a weapon attack or a spell that has an attack roll like Guiding Bolt or Scorching Ray, something like that, Eldritch Blast. And that's really, really strong for that moment where you just need a little extra oomph. And this is even more deadly on like Paladins who gain extra damage rolls if they use Divine Smite, so they auto crit with Divine Smite, and then they get even more damage rolls from extra Divine Smite rolls. So this is really, really good on Paladins, but it's basically good on any class, so if you want to put this on any class, highly recommend it. And then we come to Ability Drain, which makes it so once per turn when you make an attack roll, the attack reduces the target's corresponding ability by 1. And that ability is reduced by the same one used to make the attack roll, so for melee attacks it'd be Strength unless you used a finesse weapon with Dexterity. Ranged will be Dexterity, and then for spellcasters, their spellcasting ability modifier. This is pretty bad in my opinion. You only reduce it by 1 for 1 turn. I would not suggest taking this on any character. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference in your gameplay at all. So Stage Fright's going to make it so that the target you are targeting with it has disadvantage on attack rolls and takes psychic damage each time they miss in combat. And this will happen for 3 turns if they fail a wisdom save, but if they do connect on one of their attack rolls, they will remove this effect. And you'll obviously want to use this on a hard-hitting enemy that attacks 2 or 3 times a turn, so they take lots of damage and they also don't hit you very much. And this would probably be best used on a spellcaster because it's a wisdom save. I'm going to assume that your spellcasting ability modifier plays a role in whether you pass or fail this, just like a lot of other one of these that do. So if you're using it on a character that has no spellcasting ability modifier, it's probably going to get saved to begin with. However, Paladin is not a bad choice if you use this on a target that's like right next to you and you're engaged with them, so they have to attack you and you have high armor class and disadvantage, then they're likely going to keep missing you, which is going to keep damaging them, so that's not bad. And next we come to Perilous Stakes, which makes it so that when you cast it on somebody, they are vulnerable to all damage, meaning they take double damage to all damage types. But every time they attack, they gain healing, and you can do this will last 3 turns, once every long rest. Now, this is obviously a double-edged sword, right? Because you can debuff an enemy with this and then kill them before they can heal. That would be ideal. Or you could throw it on a party member who really needs healing in the back, as long as they're not going to get hit. Maybe somebody that hides every turn like a rogue. And then that vulnerable is not as much of a problem. But primarily, you're probably going to use it on an enemy to wipe them out, because that's not that much healing anyway. And double damage is huge. Now, the thing this doesn't tell you is that this is actually an intelligence save, so that characters that have spellcasting ability modifiers will use that when they, make their DC for this. So if you're not a spellcasting character, then it's very unlikely you're going to land this on an enemy. So you definitely want to take this on a spellcasting character, and you want to target enemies that have lower intelligence, or you want to try and manipulate their intelligence to be lower before you cast it if possible. So then we come to Shield of Thralls, which allows you to put 10 temporary hit points on a target, which lasts until long rest. So this is going to last until long rest, or, until they're gone, until like a target gets rid of them. And when a target attacks them or, casts a spell on them and gets rid of them, and that damage shield expires because of that, or those temporary hit points are gone, they're going to explode with a chance to stun enemies nearby. That's going to target the intelligence of the characters. And this can be good on pretty much any character, honestly, because who couldn't use an extra damage shield that lasts until long rest? You can throw this on outside of combat. Before combat even starts, each character in your party could have their own, and then when it expires, they have a chance to stun enemies. I mean, that's just really good anyway. So this is really good on any character, but predominantly characters that are going to be surrounded, like a melee type character, or maybe you throw it on like your zombies or something if you're a necromancer, because they might be surrounded. Psionic Backlash is easily one of the best Tadpole abilities because it's a passive feature that allows you to use a reaction that with any enemy within 9 meters, whenever they cast a spell, you can use a reaction to inflict 1d4 psychic damage to the caster per the level of the spell. So if it's like level 4 or something, it's potentially up to 16 damage. And this is a reaction you can use every round if you want, so it's just really strong in my opinion. And this damage is calculated before the damage of the spell itself. So like if this would finish off a target, then that spell's not going to hit you, which is really nice. This is probably best on melee units who are closer to the back line of enemies that are going to be spellcasters more often. However, any character can really benefit from this because sometimes enemies get through and there's nothing you can do. And having the option to, inflict damage to the enemy free, basically, anytime they cast a spell is just too good to pass up. I recommend taking this on all your characters if you really want to use tadpoles. And Cull the Weak can be really, really strong, like maybe on 1 or 2 characters, if they're 2 characters that are like really hoarding Illithid Tadpole powers. And the reason for that is because it makes it so that when a character who has Tadpole powers gets an enemy below a certain amount of hit points, they're going to instantly die and explode, doing a little bit of damage in an AoE. But what's really important here is them dying earlier than, getting to 0 HP. So if you had like 16, 17 Illithid powers, if you got an enemy below 16 or 17 HP, they would die. Like, you wouldn't have to get them to 0 at all, and that could be really, really strong. Obviously, it's going to take you, like, investing all the Illithid powers into one character. Not everyone's going to do that, but if you do it on one character, it's going to be really, really strong. If you don't, then you probably don't want to take this one. And then the outside ring of Illithid powers become available once you gain the Astral-Touched Tadpole and consume it. I'm not going to go into how you get that here for spoiler reasons, but in order to unlock those, you'll need to get that item. So the first one we're going to look at on the outer ring is Absord Intellect. This makes it so that you lower the intelligence by the target by 1 per turn over 5 turns, and heal for 1d8 per turn for 5 turns, once every short rest. You use this as an action to a target within 9 meters. This is a good way to get some extra healing, and obviously lowering the intelligence of the target means that their intelligence saves are not going to be as good if you're using a spell that targets intelligence. This could be good to have. But I only really see using this against a target that's a very hard to kill target, like a boss or something like that. That's something you're going to be fighting for a very long time, very strong enemy. Otherwise, it's probably not worth using as an action. The next one we're going to take a look at is Displacer Beast Shape. This lets you change into a Displacer Beast and use the Displace, feature. Your Strength, Dexterity, and Constitution scores are going to change to that of a Displacer Beast, but your Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma modifiers and scores will remain what they were originally. So this is going to be better on like a spellcaster than it would be on a melee character, because you'll be able to maintain those higher scores from Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. And you'll be able to use this once per long rest, and your HP pool, when it drops to 0, you'll go back to your regular form, so kind of like Wild Shape. So this HP pool is on top of your regular pool. Could be good like if you're a caster and you're in a bad spot where your health is really low and you need to get out of that bad situation. You could shape then and then have a much higher health pool for a while and also get yourself out of that situation. And the next one we're going to take a look at is Freecast. This is a passive feature you can toggle on or off that makes it so that the next ability or spell you cast doesn't consume a spell slot or a charge or some sort of resource. So like if you're going to use like the Channel Oath of your Paladin or maybe Channel Divinity of your Cleric or something like that, or whether you want to cast like, I don't know, a level 6 spell, but you don't want it to consume that one level 6 spell slot you have, this is really strong. So this is going to be probably predominantly stronger on casters because they can prevent the use of a high-level spell slot, or, some classes like Clerics or Paladins that have a strong Channel Oath or Channel Divinity feature. And this was actually changed in patch 1. It used to be refreshed on every short or long rest, but Larian deemed that too powerful, so now you can only do this once every long rest. The next one we're going to take a look at is Mind Sanctuary. This allows you to create a space, like within 9 meters, once per long rest that lasts for 3 turns, that makes it so actions and bonus actions taken inside of there are interchangeable. And this is really strong, right? Because you can make your attack a bonus action and then attack with your regular action, maybe on a class that doesn't have like extra attack. Or maybe they do, and then you can attack and then attack with your extra attack and then also attack with your bonus action. Or maybe you're some hybrid character like a paladin and you want to cast a spell, but then also you cast a spell with your bonus action and then attack with your regular action and then gain an extra attack as well. There's a lot of uses for this, and because it lasts 3 turns, it can be quite strong. The next one we're going to look at is Mind Blast. This does psychic damage in a cone in front of you with a possibility to stun the target based on their intelligence. And just like other abilities that have saves, your spellcasting ability modifier typically plays a role in this. So this is going to be better on a character that has some spellcasting ability, like a paladin or a sorcerer or wizard or something like that. If your character that's using it has no spellcasting ability, then it's very unlikely that they're going to stun the targets that this hits. They could still deal damage, but it's likely that they won't stop. And this can be used once per long rest. Next, we'll take a look at Fly. This allows the character to use their movement speed to fly, and up to 18 meters, which is double typically what your default movement speed is, and that means you're going to be able to move further, but also go up and down in elevation. So any character that needs good movement, this could be good on, and this is just about every character, let's be honest. Melee characters really need it. Ranged characters can benefit of it by getting higher up on elevation, so they're more accurate. Spellcasters can use it to get good positioning to cast their spells, and some of their spells do target armor, so they can benefit from higher elevation as well, or just to get in a good position where they can hide behind something when they're not casting to protect themselves, etc. Up next, we have Black Hole, which essentially creates a point on the ground that is a gravity, black hole that pulls in enemies and possibly slows them if they fail an intelligence saving throw. And again, your spellcasting ability modifier probably affects this, just because most of these that have saving throws factor in your spellcasting ability modifier. So this will probably be better on any character that's spellcasting. And slow is really, really strong debuff. This really reduces the amount of things a character can do in the game. So this is really, really powerful. You can use this per short rest, and then you can also cast it up to 5 more times per short rest. So you can use it more than once in between short rests. So this is really, really strong in cost pad. It's kind of like a free spellcast of slow and pulling stuff in. So if you have like a CC type spellcaster, or maybe a spellcaster that's not really, but you would like to have some CC on it, then this would be a good one to pick up. Next, we'll take a look at Psionic Dominance. This makes it so when an enemy within 18 meters targets you with a spell of a level that is lower than or equal to your proficiency bonus, you can use your reaction to nullify the spell. This is once per long rest. So from levels 1 to 4, this would be a level 2 spell or lower. From levels 5 to 8, this would be a level 3 spell or lower. And from levels 9 upward would be a level 4 spell or lower. And this is effectively like counterspell, right? It just shuts the spell down, but you use it once per long rest and it doesn't consume a spell slot. This is really good on any character because there are lots of spell casts in combat. And if you had this on each character in your party, then you could shut down 4 spells every combat, as long as they are lower proficiency level than, what your proficiency currently is. And that's typically the case. A lot of spells are typically lower or equal to. So this would be really strong on just about any character. Next is Illithid Expertise. This gives you expertise in persuasion, deception, and intimidation checks. This means your dialogue checks are going to gain your proficiency bonus and then double that proficiency bonus. So this will be +2 would become +4, +3 would become +6, and +4 would become +8. So this would cap out at +8. So that would give you technically an extra +4 at the end of the game to these checks, making you really good at them. You would probably only need to take this on your character that's a dialogue specialist. And also keep in mind that bards and rogues also gain a lot of expertise, so if your dialogue specialist is a bard or a rogue, you may not even need this on them. Next, we'll take a look at Fracture Psyche. This makes it so that you can reduce a target's armor class by 1 if they fail an int save every turn for 5 turns, once per short rest. And if you kill that target while they're under the effect of this, then you can use Shatter Psyche on another target, which reduces that target's armor by 2. This is not that good in my opinion, mostly because they have to fail the save in order for the effect to remain. But then also you're using an action to do this when you could be attacking. And unless you're fighting like a very tough to kill enemy where 1 armor class might make the difference in the fight, this is probably not that good. I wouldn't really recommend this on any character. So that wraps up our guide on Illithid Tadpole powers. I hope you found it useful, and I hope we better explained some of them. Some of the tooltips on these are kind of confusing. It took me a little bit to figure some of these out by testing them. But I hope it helps you make better decisions about what powers to take on which characters and which classes. If you have further questions or advice, please leave them in the comments below.